anybody that I spoke to in my entire circle, they said I was stupid. To be moving from Lower Parel to Kirlampudi in Vizag is the stupidest move in your career.
You weren't born an entrepreneur.
I wasn't
Are entrepreneurs born or made?
Nobody in my entire circle had a business background. There's no one path. Actually, you need to start somewhere.
Customer is the best source of funding.
Absolutely.
Not debt, not equity. Customer is the best source of funding.
You're doing a gross profit of 10 rupees. Today I do a gross profit of 200 rupees. I've actually gained market share because I was better prepared compared to my sleepy competitors. I do a lot of homework in getting to the clarity. And once I have clarity, I go all in.
Welcome to Unstarted. What is unique about this show is this is about you. It is for founders, by founders. Hi, I have a special guest today who has chosen to be here on his birthday. This is Utham Gowda of Captain Fresh, which is a global fish products company or seafood products company. What is the right way to describe it? But before I let you describe it, Utham, thank you for doing this. Net, I think what the company does is it catches fish and sells fish somewhere, maybe globally. There used to be a different term for that, but I love the new term called Captain Fresh. So welcome. Thank you for doing this. Utham, you have a fascinating story. And the goal of this podcast is to not just look at those stories from outside, but actually to look at them from the inside and make them human, which is what yours has been. We have been getting many questions along the way about the path to entrepreneurship, which I think in your case, it seems like maybe it was well thought through, maybe it wasn't. We'd love to hear from you. But it is a path that is actually seems highly attainable for others as well who will be watching this. So thank you again. Happy birthday. Would be great to walk through your background. We see on LinkedIn and on the resume, NIT, MBA, banker, operating experience at a seafood company. I'm probably missing something. And then, of course, the founder of Captain Fresh. Would be great to hear all of that from your own mouth and from the horse's mouth. And we will take questions then along the way.
Thanks so much, Avnish. It's a privilege to be doing this on birthday.
Thank you.
So, quickly jumping into my background and what led me to where I am. Obviously, there isn't much that explains or gives me advantage for where I am. In a way, it's a bunch of contrarian thought process bets along the way. So, some facts, I come from Mysore, come from a very, I would say, very normal background. My father is an economics professor. My mom is a housewife. I have a sibling, born and brought up in Mysore. I think the smartest thing that my dad did is invest in my education, which is, I think, the case with most of the middle class folks. I think all I did well was to get into competitive environments like Surathkal, and then did tech job with Utham, and then went into MBA, then investment banking. So managed to be part of those cohorts, which is kind of pushing you and trying to see what more. And at some point, after especially the first job of consulting and then investment banking, I started questioning in terms of, is this what this entire hard work was all about?
So let's pause there. So you weren't born an entrepreneur.
I wasn't
Are entrepreneurs born or made?
Nobody in my entire circle, whether first generation, second generation, nobody had a business background.
And were you surrounded by people in these journeys who were telling you, go be an entrepreneur?
Absolutely no.
Very interesting.
Absolutely
because we have heard a lot of that opposite from others, but very relatable path. I am middle class, engineer, MBA, techie, and then at some point, what flipped?
So actually the path to entrepreneurship is actually almost like a 5-6 year path.
Yeah.
Why? Because it almost adds up only in the retrospect. The dots kind of get connected, right? While I'll come to a point where there was a, let's say a 20-day, 30-day window where I really started thinking that I could become entrepreneur. But that path is first as an investment banker, I started looking at situations, understanding data, and forming opinions. And it took a while for me to start believing that those opinions, if it is backed by data and logic, can be your own. Basically, you can have an insight and call your own and act on that. I think
And then see that data play out.
see that data play
So
out.
that builds the confidence.
That builds the confidence. And I was fortunate to be working with the likes of Cyrus Mistry in Tata Group in the chairman's office. Then as part of investment banking, working with the likes of Kiran Kumar Gandhi, Birlas, bunch of these large corporates. And I was fortunate to be the only analyst who was working at the data layer and insight layer. And it was my insights being discussed on the table. That gave me the confidence that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your experience, age doesn't matter as long as you have done your hard work
Yeah.
in terms of working with the data and having a sound logic, right? So that is one, to give you a sense that yes, you can own an insight and represent that insight. And as I went through, then applying that insight to a particular industry,
Yeah.
which is where choosing seafood, then
Yeah.
starting to connect the dots of what I have seen in other industries, more evolved industries, and why this industry is primitive or has a long curve, and then start seeing when you one
Were you serving some clients, seafood
yes,
client?
I was serving a client, which is
Yeah.
again a client that was picked by me.
Yeah.
Nobody, boss did not tell me that look, go behind this
Yeah.
client. So that was something that I picked. So
Yeah.
which meant that I backed my own
Yeah.
intuition and
Yeah.
my understanding there. So that gave me confidence that yes, I think when you pick a sector basis a certain fundamentals that you have seen, it's going to play out or it can play out the way you expect, right? And then comes the people environment.
Yeah.
When you pick a client, then the whole motion about understanding that situation, the people, the operator part, and looking at all of these dynamics.
Yeah.
Right? What you see on the data is one.
Yeah.
But really what plays out on the ground is a function of the people involved.
Yeah.
The family managed environment that is involved.
Yeah.
Incumbents being very, very, not so evolved, unsophisticated.
Very old world.
Seeing all of that is the
Yeah.
one that gives you confidence.
Interesting. So I think very actionable for people. You were on the advisory side, yet you were, in my view, behaving like a principal. And I think we have many questions that people ask. I'm at XYZ, I'm at Big Four, I'm at a banker. Actually, and this is a theme that has come across all the episodes, really you can compound every phase of your life towards what you want to do. So there is no one path.
There is no one path.
Yeah.
There is no one path. Actually,
Yeah.
you need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
It could be anywhere in this entire canvas.
Yeah.
But the process is that how do you actually improvise and go deeper and deeper and layer on layer, peel off the layer.
And in some ways, I could argue you are getting great lessons without skin in the game and risk. I mean, it could be the
absolutely.
best of all worlds. Right?
Absolutely.
By the way, that's how I got started with Bazi, because I was at Goldman Sachs and I was writing the DRHP for eBay. And I'm like, this is a very interesting model. Why don't I go to this?
Exactly my starting point. I was writing the
We
DRHP
had
for
this
McKenzie.
discussion. Yes. And so talk about that. Then how did you end up? What
So-
did you do next?
So once I was in banking, then I picked up a client in seafood. Then the client wanted to change their track from a private capital raising. They wanted to go public. So that's possibly where I took my biggest decision.
Yeah.
To quit my investment banking in Mumbai, move my family to Vizag.
Yeah.
Go lock, stock and barrel there. Because that in a way was a non-consensus decision.
Yes.
Anybody that I spoke to
Yeah.
in my entire circle,
Yeah.
they said I was stupid.
Yeah.
To be moving from Lower Parel to Kirlampudi in Vizag is the stupidest move in your career.
I'm going to pause you there because we have heard the opposite till now, which is many people have listened to their close circles and taken decisions. And that has turned out to be right because their view is my closest circle knows me best. You took the opposite, but I don't think you took more risk, maybe even less risk, because you were just very well prepared. You had done all the work, you had tested your hypotheses, you had seen it work, and then you took the decision. We talk on this podcast a lot about stacking odds in your favor, and I think you had done that, so it's very interesting. And then, how did the family react to the move?
A lot of times you need to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
right, and face the consequences in such cases. In this case, yeah, I took that, and finally family had to come around, and they were quite supportive along
Yeah.
the way. Also, I think one important point is we talk about professional success, but how you design your personal life makes a lot of difference. In my case, I have a partner who has been with me since 9th standard, so she has kind of seen things.
That's amazing.
Yeah, all the ups and downs. So some of these decisions have been easier, maybe relative to others. So I could take that decision, move to Neck and Tea. Same thing where I was writing their DRHP, I was taking that story to the public market investors. That kind of gave me a crash course in terms of what are the limitations of this business model. And speaking to 100 odd public market investors
Yeah.
is a privilege that I today as an operator, I can't tell you the advantage that I have
Yeah.
over other operators.
Yeah.
Because it's a free lesson
Yeah.
that all of those 100 investors through their questions gave me in terms of what is a business model that could pass their tests if I maybe come back to them years later.
And that's the key, because at very early stage as VC, we look at different things. But with that, let's pick up the first question, because as from that point on, and the question is, I understand starting up requires immense courage and a sprinkle of some delusion, but before the plunge, how do we realistically stress test our own abilities and ideas? That you did along the way by virtue of working in that sector, seeing how the data played out. And then the question goes on, and people can read it. They are trying to systematically form a thesis. What doors do I knock? What conversations do I get into? What should I not, right? And I know you went very deep. So let's talk about the story of how you went from that DRHP writing to starting Captain Fresh.
See, the process of DRHP writing meant that I had to scan the entire universe for whatever is there, literature on this. It could mean there are certain listed companies, which means there is their investor presentations, their quarterly reports, their MD&A, and their outlook of how the world looks, right? Starts from that.
MD&A is management discussion and analysis, which is probably that, and the risk factors may be overstated, but probably one of the most rich pieces of
Insights,
the DRHP. It tells you about the business, tells you about the moats, tells you everything.
And how they look at the industry. Right?
Actually, for people, I think if they're looking to start in a sector, go read DRHPs and public market company results, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one start. Yeah. And if you are actually a little bit more privileged, you have access to initiating coverage reports, which is essentially an analyst's view of how this industry is working.
Yeah.
And that analyst view is unique because, again, that analyst has experience across other sectors. And they are trying to connect the dots, right?
Yeah.
Here, now you are exposed to second, third, fourth order insights, which typically you don't get.
And sorry to pause you there, Utham, but just so it's relatable for people, in the world of AI, you don't have to be privileged. This is all on cloud, Claude, ChatGPT, everywhere, as long as you just make sure that they are guarding in your prompt against hallucination and it is authentic. I think everything is now, information is just democratized, right?
So that is one set of things, which is giving you a macro view, which has convinced me that, look, seafood is the future. Protein is the future. People are going
that
towards
protein call, when was this? 18, 19, 17? When did you start?
2017.
17, right? That was protein was a very forward-leaning call at that time. Maybe 2-3 years ago, if you took it. So how did you reach that conclusion?
In India, it is still, you can say that 2-3 years ago is when it kicked off. But I am looking at global.
And you were taking the call on GDP? What was your call?
I was taking a call on global protein consumption because I was with an exporter who was selling into the US, who was selling into Europe. Protein is already an in thing.
Yeah, interesting.
2015, 2016, 2017, protein is already a big thing. Nestle's of the world, Danone's
and
of the world.
And fish was considered one of the better protein, whatever, the better, more healthy.
It's the nature's super protein, right?
Yeah.
Fish is already gifted by nature.
Yeah.
Right? So the entire thing around protein was an established opportunity. And then I took a macro view, and that entire set of insights you could gather convinced me that, look, protein, seafood in the food stack is a safest bet.
So tell me, at that time, there was also this movement against non-veg, Beyond Meat and this and that. How did you think of that as a contra at that time?
To be honest, it is not something that really that I evaluated a lot on, because when I was talking to customers, really when I say
So let's talk about that. It sounds like you get everywhere by talking to customers. So
yeah,
what
so
all
the
did you do?
one is that.
Yeah.
Right? Second is operators. Like the process of choosing this company to work with. I went and met the top 20 operators in the country. That gave a nuance around what does it take to run this business.
Yeah.
What are the different pieces of this business which are important, right? That is second. Third is stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, it is suppliers, it is agents, it is customers. So looking at this entire beast from different directions and trying to have your own sense of how this shape looks like, right? Customers, in my view, are the most important stakeholders, because finally customer pays for your product.
Yeah.
And they fund all the activities that you do. If you're doing 10 activities, if customer is not paying for those 10 activities, you're either paying from debt or from equity, and eventually that's a leaky bucket.
Very good. Let me pause people there. Customer is the best source of funding.
Absolutely.
Not debt, not equity. Customer is the best source of funding.
And if you are doing 10 activities and customer doesn't appreciate anything, something in that, then you're cross subsidizing somewhere.
And
it's a leaky bucket.
Let me underline that. Product market fit means somebody is buying your product. That person is the customer. Please ask them what they want to buy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these activities, when you cover from all angles, if you're looking at a seafood industry, macro, you're convinced. You're speaking to every stakeholder, and every conversation is adding to your understanding that there is opportunity here.
Yeah.
And the customer tells you there is a problem.
Yeah.
There is a problem and it needs to be solved. There is a gap. So when this becomes recurring, and when you do hundreds of these conversations, there comes a point in time you believe you have something differentiated as an insight.
Yeah. You know, people talk a lot about this gut and instinct. And by the way, my view is there's a difference between instinct, which animals also have, and intuition, which only humans have. And the reality is, actually a very informed gut instinct is great judgment. And you were just building up to that. You were doing all the secondary work and the primary work. And then, did I hear you at the end, you just feel it? That
you just feel it.
Yeah. But it's a very informed feeling, not an instinct. Yeah.
I'll tell you anecdotally what happened. I went through this journey. My company did not go for listing. Then I also became an investor, in fact. I raised a fund of 40 crores, invested in 5 startups, meat and seafood companies. That gave me a flavor of what a new age entrepreneur.
All those 5 companies were meat and seafood?
Yes. That was the thesis of the fund.
Wow.
That I wanted the exporters who were exposed to US and Europe to get a piece of action in India through this fund. And that's where I raised the money from.
So you were having a very traditional journey, always trying to learn, and then you came on to seafood, and then every step was to compound that.
Yes.
You were clear.
I was very clear that seafood can be a multi-bagger.
Yeah.
And if I have to invest in seafood, the best investment is not my money, my time.
Yeah, very
That's
good.
what I did.
Yeah.
I invested in seafood 3 years of my time.
Yeah.
So if I started up in 2020, actually it is the 5-6 years of, so to say, layered work in the industry that gave me the conviction to say that I can do something in this industry which can be a multi-bagger.
Let's take the next question, and then we are going to come back to then where we started and where we are today.
Hi, I'm Manas, and this is the question I've had. So, when you were in your growth and the expansion stage of your business, what were some of the hurdles that you faced?
So, you have faced all of them. How did you start, and how do you navigate to where you are today?
So, let us take the growth question, right? As a mental model, how do you convince yourself that you can grow? I always start from market sizing. Having an extremely deeper understanding of one, what is the size of the market? How do you slice and dice that market? Which are the different channels that can take you to that customer? What are the nuances of that channel? Having that deeper understanding, if you ask me, is the biggest step to engineer growth. Then you know where to spend your effort, who can take you to that channel, what is that, how do you convert that into revenue, etc., etc. That, if you ask me, you won't get from a lot of reading up. It is something that you need to go into the market,
Yeah.
especially in our category, because it's not well researched.
Yeah.
Speaking to multiple customers across the country, even when we wanted to go global, doing the same thing in the other side, on the other
But
side.
let's pause there. Didn't you started as domestic, to your point on market sizing? You kind of always knew, you've told me you kind of always knew that it had to be global. But that story at that time may not have found much traction. So is it fair to say you perfected the playbook on the supply side, and then walk through that journey?
So we started with India.
Yeah.
The theory was that Indian retailers are underserved,
Yes.
and we built the supply chain to service the Indian retailer. Now the good news is that the supply chain is common, whether we are exporting that product or servicing the Indian retailer. When we realized that Indian retailer, the profit pools are very shallow. When we did this, so the thesis initially was, as you get scale, you get enough leverage that you can expand the profit pool. But that thesis of expanding the profit pool on the distribution side did not play out to what our initial hypothesis was. But the supply chain infrastructure was the same. Then what we did is we reoriented that whole demand from India to global.
Yeah.
So just to give one simple number, when we were doing India business, we were doing a gross profit of, let's say, a gross profit actual number of 10 rupees.
Yeah.
So I would buy product at X, I would mark it up by X plus 10 and sell.
Yeah.
Today I do a gross profit of 200 rupees.
Yeah.
Same product, I mark it up by 200.
Yeah.
The only difference is I sell to a customer who is basically from a per capita income zone of $40,000.
Yeah.
Versus previously I was selling to a customer who is from a per capita income zone of $2,000.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. So for me as an entrepreneur, the mental model was one, where to play. I am doing a set of activities.
Yeah.
I believe they are the right set of activities.
Yeah.
If I choose a right to a playground which is
Yeah.
$2,000 per capita,
Yeah.
all the value that I'll create,
Yeah.
surplus that I will create for myself is 10 rupees. For the same set of activities, there is a different customer where the surplus could be 200 rupees.
Yeah.
Which is the difference between a sustainable business and an unsustainable
I think
business.
it's a big takeaway. We have not covered this in any of our episodes, which is picking where to play, like you said. I don't think enough is written about it, enough is spoken about it. People talk about TAM, all of these things in a very, very macro. So I could say your TAM is, global shrimp or global seafood. But then you said, okay, there are certain channels in that TAM that are far more profitable. So I think to answer the question, first step, if you are playing in the wrong place, growth and expansion will always be a challenge. And if you're finding that to be a challenge, then you need to solve the problem upfront and first principles by picking where to play.
I'll add one more point to it. Like when we started, we had startups in our industry who had raised substantially higher amount of capital.
Yeah.
And through our journey from 2020 to 2026, all of these companies at any point in time had more capital than what we did.
Yeah.
Right? Simply because our where to play is different. Today we have managed to be at a very different scale, very different profitability curve than our competition.
That's very interesting. So are you saying that you picked where to play also based on whether, there is this management lingo, red ocean, which is very competitive, blue ocean, which is not as competitive. Was that a factor?
It was a factor because if profit pools are not there,
Yeah.
because I cannot overnight increase the per capita income of my customer
Yeah.
from 2,000 to 10,000.
Yeah.
And unless it's 10,000, there is only so much profit pool that I can go after. But the number of activities that I do to
Yeah.
do this product right,
Yeah.
those were the same 10 activities. I can't shortchange on those activities,
Yeah.
which cost me the same.
Yeah.
Right? So essentially having this view on which customer is the best customer to pay for all your 10 activities and still have surplus for you
Yeah.
is the most important call that we need to take. And that I think so far what I'm talking about a lot, because Indian founder
Yeah.
is somewhere limited to finding these customers only within India.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most contrarian things that we did as a company.
And it's very interesting because you have navigated yourself, and I don't know how much you were involved backroom negotiations on the EU-India FTA and US-India trade agreement. You have navigated yourself into a great sweet spot. We'll talk about that. But when you took this call, how did you get convinced that people would buy from India, or were they already buying from India?
There is already a buying from India. I think the value that I saw is Indian ecosystem or Indian incumbent, they were acting as raw material suppliers.
So they were underselling themselves.
They were underselling themselves.
It's the same thing, by the way, we have done in IT services. For the longest time, like we think of ourselves here. Like if you look at Israel and IT, they will build products.
So
we will always keep
There is
doing
an anecdotal thing that I can share with you. In one of the recent conversations, one of them said, I am one of the few founders companies that is talking about end customer, revenue, gross margin, value, rather than saying that I come from India, so my cost structure is better, so I'll be cheaper compared to XYZ country, so give me business.
And where do you live now and why?
I live in Amsterdam because today I truly believe I need to observe, learn how that customer behaves if I need to be relevant to that customer. And clearly in the last 14 months, my own mindset has changed.
And Amsterdam is the best connected or the
best connected place for the global world, but most importantly, 14 months ago, 15 months ago, if I was to share half an hour about my company, I would talk about supply chain, I would talk about cost, I would talk about all the engineering that we have done on the back end. But today, I'm going to talk about protein, I'm talk about what we can do.
Because you're sitting in the customer, you're sitting in the market.
And that changes the vantage point.
Coming back to these FTAs, right now, every headline I see, shrimp textile, and I think Utham is really benefiting. Shrimp seems to be everywhere. But last 12 months were brutal. So what is the lesson coming back to this growth and expansion? And actually, let's take the next question.
Hello. I was curious to know, how does a founder ensure that they are true to the mission and not just serving their ego?
So I'm going to combine two things. One, you faced a really hard period over the last 12, 14 months, at least from the headlines. But when I look at the numbers of the business, it doesn't appear that way. What did you do? What was that navigation? And to this question, you have taken many decisions over the last 2 years where many in your investors and board they were supportive because they support you, but they were not convinced, including myself. And maybe that's where this comes. So let's address both.
So I think there was this question on IPO as well, right?
So IPO, let's play that also.
As someone who's very keen on entrepreneurship, I wanted to ask the founders, when do you decide to go public or stay private?
Adarsh is going to be the next Utham, I can tell you right now. It seems to be. So now you have all the questions, over to you.
So my understanding, my lessons from my DRHP days, a company is ready to do IPO has two pillars to it. One is the business set out for an IPO. Not all businesses can be IPO. The three fundamental characteristics of a business that can be IPO'd is it needs to have predictable cash flows. This is the least talked about feature of a business. It needs to have high ROCE. Indian stock market is almost perversely fascinated about high ROCE businesses compared to, let's say,
return on capital employed. I am putting it 100 rupees, what am I getting? And just for the audience, if I put 100 rupees in the bank, I get 8%. I'm told if I put it in the stock market, I'll get 15%. That's not been the case for the last. So if I'm putting it in your business, it better be higher than 15%.
Absolutely.
Right?
And Indian thresholds are much higher.
Yes.
Compared to a Chinese threshold.
Yes. Right? Because it's not been, the volatility is very high, so people have a premium on.
The third one is, are you in a market which has a secular growth trend? Where you can deliver a 10, 15, 20% growth over a longer period. So these three things are important. Obviously, growth and ROCE talked about, predictability is not talked about. Now, the other part is the whole governance and all the tactical elements, all of that I would say are things that you can do in the last 2-3 years once you decide.
And it's hygiene.
It's hygiene,
Yeah.
so fixable. And
Yeah.
there is enough and more talent in the
Yeah.
industry that can come and help you. My focus has been, how do I build a business that can deliver on 3, especially the predictability. Because when I took Nekkanti to the market, it scored very low on predictability because it was single species, single market, single origin. So the risk got amplified
Yeah.
the moment you were very, very concentrated in all 3 vertices.
Yeah.
So the design choices that I had to make to build a business which is predictable
Yeah.
is what I was committed to. So when you come to motive versus ego,
We'll
right?
come to motive versus ego, but to answer his question, and he has a similar vantage point, so maybe specific to him. You chose to enter a business where you were clear that if it were to work, it is IPO-able.
It has
from
to be.
From day one, that was a criteria, and predictable cash flows, architecture of multi-species, multi-geographies, all of that has flowed from there, saying this is IPO backwards.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now let's come to lots of decisions, lots of churn, and both the FTA churn and the acquisitions and how all of this.
The motive versus ego part,
Yeah.
right? So once I was committed to building a business that has predictable cash flows,
Yeah.
it meant that it need to be multi-species, multi-origin, and vertically integrated. I was committed to these 3. As a founder, I was seeing this, right? When I decided to go from India to global,
Yeah.
that was a big thing.
Yeah.
But that was foundation was that I had to deliver on these multi-geo
Yeah.
and vertically integrated. Otherwise, there is no business model that can be IPO.
Yeah.
While for an investor, it seems like an extremely contrarian bet.
Yeah.
But for me, that was the only way to deliver this well-designed business
But now
model.
that I know your life story, everything is contrarian, we should just say okay. But it's interesting going back to this question. I remember this debate. I remember one of the acquisitions we didn't do, where you and I were discussing. And now it is very clear, because you'd said this at that time. If the goal is X, then the path is Y.
Yeah.
And motive versus ego, your goal, that motive was X. The motive wasn't Utham wants to be,
I want
this
to buy
big
the
guy,
biggest company.
big guy across US and EU and all. The motive was predictable cash flows, diversified business. This is the only route.
Yes.
Right?
So today, fast forward, we do business in US and Europe.
Yeah.
Each $500 million.
Yeah.
I do business across 30 different species.
Yeah.
I do sourcing from 30 odd countries. Right? Coming to your tariff question. Even before the tariffs were introduced, not introduced, etc., I was set up in a manner. I was not dependent on a particular corridor
Yeah.
for my seafood.
Yeah.
If India was dialed up for 50% tariff, India was only 15% of my sales.
You went to Ecuador.
I went to Ecuador and I was in an asset light setup.
Yeah.
So this whole predictable return on capital growth, the second part is return on capital employed.
Yeah.
And the best way to get that is to be asset light.
Yeah.
And we have been true to that asset light structure from day one.
Yeah.
And because of that, it gave me a strategic advantage that when there was tariff, I could actually leap forward significant portion of the competition who are thinking in the traditional manner. Today, in the last 14 months, in fact, I have been at a big advantage thanks to tariff.
Yeah.
I've actually gained market share because I was better prepared compared to my sleepy competitors, right? So in a way, it goes back to the motive, the fact that we were designed for that predictable cash flows, irrespective of
And
currency.
then luck is you had created enough surface area to catch some of these breaks, which from day one you knew, and you took the choice that you were going in a sleepy industry where the others won't. They
Yes.
won't be able to navigate, and that will become your edge. Utham, thank you. One of the things when you and I were chatting, you were talking about motive, and it came out again. The clarity I've been telling the listeners that for every entrepreneur, I'm going to call out one trait that differentiates them. And if the listeners can have all 52 or 100 of them, then they won't exist because it's not possible. In your case, in my language, it's courage of conviction. And that also goes into all your contrarian calls. So congratulations. Happy birthday again. What are any closing thoughts that you want to leave the audience with, who's watching you and saying, clearly one guy probably sooner rather than later, that I wish I want the same journey, or maybe I'm wary about having the same journey?
I think two things. One is, like you mentioned, for me what has really helped is clarity. I do a lot of homework in getting to that clarity, and once I have clarity, I go all in. I'm sure you would have experienced that. However tough the call is,
Yeah.
we do what it takes to get it done, because I
Yeah.
believe in it.
Yeah.
And if I don't believe in it, there's no point doing it for somebody else,
Yeah.
because that's the recipe for disaster. Second, I think on a personal front, what I've seen is validation is something, if you can worry less about, it takes a lot of noise away from you.
Yeah.
Whether it is validation from investors, because eventually
Yeah.
fundamentals catch up.
I'm going to recommend a book, Subtle Art of Not Giving a FUCK. I do think too many people, fortunately I've almost gotten fired twice because I didn't seek validation, but I think that's very, very important and well said. Keep going.
Yeah. So I think that for entrepreneurs are important, because while yes, there is enough information about everything, it also translates to a lot of noise. So for an entrepreneur to cut out that noise and focus on things, he needs to have this mindset of not trying to seek validation
Yeah.
from quarters that don't matter to you.
But the balance and why because that can go into slipping into delusion and going into inside out. You are just very deeply researched then.
Yes.
And you're very customer backwards.
That's why I said clarity.
You will listen to customers for validation, not to
Yeah,
others.
clarity,
Yeah.
conviction, and then not seeking validation.
Yeah.
Because seeking validation can add to a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Today, because hallucination is real, whether it's from
AI
people
or
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the 2 cents from my side.
And speak about your personal transformation.
The fitness, see, I have always believed.
What was the highest weight? What are you now?
So I have lost 30 kgs. The good news is that entire fat is being stripped out. So I've kept the lean body mass the same. I think 2-3 years ago, I have always seen entrepreneurship as a sport. I continue to see that, like what you mentioned. There is no single path to it.
Yeah.
It's about playing this game, turning up, and just performing and enjoying, right? So being athletic is extremely important in this entire journey. I realized that along the way, because you experience this life through your body, and that's the best tool that you've got. So I just thought I wanted to.
So
be
you
in the
gym,
leadership.
you watch what you eat, you don't drink that often, and net much higher energy also, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's the
most
ultimate payoff.
important-
Yeah.
Most important, I today have restorative sleep of upwards of 30% on an average,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is deep sleep plus REM.
Yeah.
And I can clock a 7-hour, 7.5 hour sleep. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it used to be fragmented.
Yeah.
It used to be 4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah.
And if I today look back at a $1 billion scale that I have, what is my role?
Yeah.
My role is to take those 5 or 6 decisions in a month
Yeah.
that are where you don't have data.
Yeah.
You need to have clear mind.
Yeah.
And to be able to take that 5 or 6 high quality decisions,
Yeah.
your mind and your body needs to be in the best primed state. So that is where the motivation for fitness comes.
Very good. In 1 year, hopefully it will be 5 to 6 decisions a year, which is
Happy.
what Elon Musk says. Congratulations again. Happy
Thank you.
birthday. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
You're watching Z47 Moments, the podcast by India's oldest venture capital firm, Z47. If you like this episode, consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss an update from Z47 Moments.